Hello, everyone. My name is Oleg Kagan, and I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator with LA County Library, and I welcome you to Smashing Through Networking Barriers. Before we get going with today's event, I'd like to take care of some housekeeping and tell you a little bit about the Work Ready program. And now I'd like to tell you about the Work Ready program. Work Ready started in December of 2020 with the purpose of helping people get a job, improve their work situation, and plan a more sustainable career path. We're doing that in two ways. One is we lend out Wi-Fi hotspots and laptops out of 27 library locations, breaking down one barrier to signing up for jobs and getting training. And two is we're doing events just like this one on a variety of work-related topics, from the basics like cover letters, resumes, interviews, to networking, and all sorts of deep dives into careers and other job topics. If you'd like to see any of those past programs, that is an option since we archive them on our YouTube channel. We have over 50 of our past work-ready events and related videos on a playlist just for the purpose of you exploring. So I'm going to post that in the chat, and you should be able to explore that at your leisure. And just so you know, this program, in case you need to leave early or you want to review it again or share it with friends, it will be on our YouTube channel either later today or later this week. And you'll get a follow-up email letting you know that the video link is posted, and with any links that are talked about during this video, along with the slides. Now, this program is made possible with funds provided by the American Rescue Plan. And the next Work Ready program we have for you is not until January. We're done for December after this program. Let everybody celebrate the holidays, but we're going to be back on January 9th at 11 a.m. Mark your calendars, your physical calendars, your bullet journals, and or your online calendars, because we're returning on January 9th at 11 a.m. with Work Ready Career Planning 101. It's going to be a big picture view of career management. I don't have a registration link for that just yet, but I'm going to post a description in the chat. So when you mark your calendars, you'll know what you're going to be getting. And if you'd like to learn about any of our future programs, actually programs past and present and future, for all ages, kids, teens, adults, older adults from the library, you can go to our website at lacountylibrary.org, click on the top right-hand side where it says events, and you'll get a full listing of our events. If you're only interested in virtual events like this one, you can get that by hovering over that events link. You'll get a drop down that says virtual programs. Click on that, and then you'll just see the Zoom events that we have coming up. And of course, all library events are absolutely free. Okay, now it's time to smash through networking barriers. And the person that's going to help you do that is Siria Gutierrez. Siria Gutierrez is a multidisciplined high-performance leadership coach, helping professionals, small business owners, and Latinx individuals go from overwhelm and dreading their days to work that aligns with their true values so they can go on vacation without their laptops. CDA is a speaker, mental health advocate, mental fitness and mindset coach, podcaster, and personal injury lawyer based out of Las Vegas, Nevada. She's a first-gen professional from Guatemala in Nicaragua, earning her BA from UCLA and her JD from the William S. Boyd School of Law at UNLV. CDA is a certified professional coach, receiving her training from the Coactive Institute, respected worldwide as the gold standard of coaching. CDA co-hosts the Pivotal Moments HQ podcast, a wellness and mindset podcast with her best friend and COO for the Center of Appreciative Inquiry, Melissa Rabiana. To rest and rejuvenate, CDA enjoys spending time with her partner, Matthew, attending live theater, watercolor art, traveling, and attending fan conventions for her favorite show, Supernatural. And with that supernatural introduction, I welcome to the stage Siria Gutierrez. Siria, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much, and thank you for that introduction. Thank you to all of you for being here today and wanting to learn more about networking. As you heard, my name is Siria Gutierrez, and I actually did just get back from a fan convention. I really do try to rest and rejuvenate, so just wanted to throw that in there. And I'm going to share my screen now. You guys have this. So I'm actually really excited about this workshop, and I got to give a huge shout out to Oleg because we brainstormed and we worked on this one. This is specifically for you guys. It's for this community, and it was such an amazing process to go through it because Oleg knows you guys. He knows you so well, and he knows what your struggles are, and we were trying to figure out what is the best way to serve your community, and I love that so much. So I'm really excited to be here and having had that collaboration so that you guys get the benefit of really what are we talking about when we're talking about networking in particular. I think a lot of us get in our heads about that. So that's what we are going to be talking about, right? It's a dirty word, right? People don't like networking. People get all gross about it. You can have a visceral reaction. I'm curious because I do like to hear from you as I'm doing these presentations. Let me know in the chat, what do you feel about networking? I'm trying to find my chat button here. When you think of networking, what comes up? Intimidating, social anxiety, awkward, uncomfortable, fear, yes. Self-promotion. No one wants to do it unless it's on paid time, exactly. Talking to people you don't know, yes. Yeah, I mean, schmoozing, yeah, people don't like that word, right? So where to start? I always stump myself on how bad I think I am at selling myself. Yeah, there is a sales aspect to this, right? Where we're trying to get out there. I mean, you guys get it. Is it right to share vulnerability? Asking for free stuff to strangers. Yeah, there's all kinds of different things that happen when we're talking about networking. And really, I mean, it's a simple definition. It's an exchange of information or services among individuals, groups, or institutions to cultivate productive relationships for employment and business. That's essentially what it is. There's some sort of business relationship that's a little different than getting together for the holidays, right? But in the holidays was part of why we wanted to do this during this time period is there are all kinds of opportunities that you may not consider traditional networking. And so we want to make sure that we are touching on those. So yeah, I'm glad you made it, Michael. So we'll be using the chat. We'll be talking about networking. Networking is not as bad as we make it out to be because of how we can think about it. So for today, here are my goals. We're going to identify both internal and external barriers to networking. I'm going to provide you with some personal practical tools, things that I've used that while we were brainstorming, we've learned that other people have used that really help how we have all of this information in the group. And I'm going to ask you guys questions to make sure that you guys are participating in the chat and that we can get the benefit of some of those other answers, and then hopefully shift your perspective on what networking really is. And so I just want to make sure I'm here for you guys. I want to make sure you guys are here too. If you are here and ready to just dive into this networking group, go ahead and throw in your favorite emoji in the chat for me. I just want to make sure you guys are here and know where the chat is. There we go. Yep. Favorite emojis. Yeah. All right. Perfect. As I mentioned earlier, this is a brand new presentation that was made specifically for you guys. So I want to make sure you're going to give me some grace in case there's a couple of things that I might stumble in on here. If you guys are good with that, just give me a thumbs up in your chat box. Yep, this is it. We got all kinds of thumbs up. Perfect. And then the final thing is that you agree to ask questions if you have them. Trust me, there's no question that's going to be dumb or that's going to be, oh, that's silly. She already covered that, whatever that is. There's somebody else in the room that may need the same answer and is not willing to ask that question. And that's part of this ability to step out and step in front of yourself. So if you have those questions, I want you to say, yeah, you know what? I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to ask them, knowing that I'm going to try to see as many as I can and read as many of the responses as I can. I may not get to all of them though, but that's what we're going to try to do. So if you guys are good with that and making sure you're not going to hold back on it, just let me know. Just do like the hands up emojis, the raise the roof ones, right? There we go. All right. All right. You guys all know where your emojis are, and I love that. I love seeing that come through. So we're going to start. You guys mentioned it a lot in the chat. Fear. Fear is a huge barrier. And you know what? All of us have the fear barrier. And so the way I've always thought about fear is that it's false evidence appearing real. And these are just a couple of the things that we came up with as we were discussing some of these internal barriers that we have. You know, the fear of rejection, right? I'm going to put myself out there and no one is going to want me. Well, rejection hurts. Rejection hurts so bad that we have, you know, movies and songs dedicated to the topic of rejection. It's, mind you, it's in heartbreak. It's in a different setting. But all of that rejection is something that we feel, and we feel it internally, right? You're going to feel even a physical reaction when someone says something. And so the idea of us physically putting ourselves in a space that is going to harm us, well, that gets our fear going, right? Our fear is, nope, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do anything that is going to make me uncomfortable, okay? Fear of rejection is something we're all dealing with at different levels. And as we go through this, you're going to see, well, sometimes those fears are bigger than what they actually are in reality, because our brain likes to talk about all kinds of different things and give us all kinds of ideas that aren't actually part of what's happening. Then we've got the fear of judgment, right? We fear someone's going to judge us for wanting something different, maybe for wanting to step out of our comfort zone, to step out of our box, to say, you know what, I always wanted to pursue this goal. This is what I wanted to do, but life took me on this other path. It takes bravery to pivot to the other spot that you wanted to go to, even if you had to weave around, right? But that space of how do I go from this point to the next point? How do I flip over? There's all that judgment in there. What are other people going to say? What am I going to be dealing with? And that's another fear that we have that's going to hold us back. And you know what? I'd rather not deal with that judgment and then not go pursue what it is that you want to pursue. Same thing with social anxiety, right? We're out there, and mind you, and I don't want to minimize anybody's social anxiety, because I know that there are certain levels of social anxiety that you may need to get medication or do other things to actually help you get outside. I'm talking about just the anxiety of being around other new people, right? Having to schmooze, having to do all that stuff. These are fears that are going to keep us from doing things, overthinking them, maybe even sitting in the parking lot for 15 minutes before we're finally brave enough to talk ourselves into going into the event, right? These are the things that we're dealing with when we're dealing with these internal barriers and fears. So here's some things we may say to ourselves if this is some of the stuff that we're battling with, right? Failure to follow up. Who here has not followed up with someone after they met them at a networking event? If you've done that, just let me know in the chat, and I'll tell you about the times I've done that. Yep. Yeah. It's very common, right? We fear following up. I have been giving my business card, I should have had one up here, to students for the last 14 years, dealing with that now. Okay, well, hopefully we'll give you some tools on how to deal with that. 14 years, actually earlier. I was giving students my card when I was in law school in 2007, letting them know, hey, if you want to go to law school, I'm here. I'm a resource. I will answer your question. I've met them at wine events, on cruise ships, just everywhere, book fairs. I've met students everywhere that when they find out I'm an attorney and they want to ask questions, I give them that access because I want to make sure that, they have that. And if they have any questions, that they can do that. You want to guess how many people have actually reached out to me to ask questions when I've given them freely my contact info to do that? Just curious. Over 2007 to now, I can math, that's 15 years. What guesses do you guys have? 1%, 15, less than 100. Yeah. 2 people have followed up. Yeah, it's not a lot of people, even though I'm giving them that information. And I'll tell you what, I would not care when they follow up with me. If they had the information, they would be able to reach out, right? They have it there. If they have the questions, if they have the curiosity, I'm more than willing to help. And then for those of you asking in the chat, we can see it, but you guys can't see it. So that's just kind of how it's set up, so that people are definitely chatting. So we get in our heads about it, right? Oh, it's too late. And we start with this internal clock. I know I do the same thing where it's like, well, I was at that networking event a week ago. Well, a week is still an appropriate window. And then another week goes by. And you're like, oh, well, 2 weeks. Oh, is it too late now? No, maybe not. But then little by little, you start counting. You start checking off. Okay, now it's been 1 week. Now it's been 2 weeks. Now it's been 3 weeks. Now it's been 4. And at some point internally, you go, you know what? Nope, I am not going to reach out because it's too late, right? That's a fear that we may have, and you may have that as well. I'm in this one right now, and Oleg knows this because we've been talking about it, and I still haven't sent off my manuscript, but I'll tell you guys more about that. Here's some other things that we could be saying. We could be saying, I can't do it. Who am I to follow up with them, right? I don't have the confidence. No, I can't do that. That's out of my wheelhouse. I have no information for that. I don't have qualifications. I've been out for too long. I don't have the right degree. I don't have any degree. There's so many different things that we could do that's how we end up here in this lack of confidence. We start talking ourselves down. And then I will answer the question, Ben, on what's the appropriate window of time to follow up. Because I think there's a couple answers to that, but I will answer that. So I just want to let you know. Fear of the inability to talk or express yourselves. That's another thing that comes up where people just say, I don't have the words. I don't know all these other ways to express myself. I'm pretty simple with my language. I come off wrong because I don't know what I'm doing with these things, right? These are some of the barriers that we are going to say to ourselves. But here is the truth when it comes to these. We all have these fears. Every single person has these fears. I'm standing here right now going, I've done a lot of networking, but is this really, I hope it's of value, right? We all have these types of fears that we can't do certain things. You have to start somewhere, right? And the funny thing is, people are not paying as much attention to you as you believe they are. We think, because we're the main characters, we're the center of our worlds, that everybody's paying attention to what we're doing. And there might be 1 or 2 people who are actively involved or listening to your day-to-day that may know those things for you. And I won't minimize those people. But by and large, the greater group of people, these networks, these acquaintances, these business relationships that you have built over the years, they're really not paying attention to you specifically. They may see certain things. They may see, oh, wow, it looks like you're really active. It looks like you've been doing some traveling, but nobody's paying as much attention as you believe that they are to you. And so if you reach out to someone and it's been a while, they're going to be excited that you reached out. They're not going to be going, oh, well, haven't seen you in 6 months. And maybe if you get that kind of reaction, that is also telling you something. I don't want to be around people who react that way. In fact, I was in a networking group that would sometimes say stuff like that, be like, wow, it's been a while since I've seen you. Sometimes that can feel like, oh, wow, that's really nice. It's like, oh man, it's been a while since I've seen you. It's good to see you. Is different energy than, well, haven't seen you in a while, right? There's tone, there's inflection, there's differences in how that makes you feel. So that'll give you some information of, you know, maybe this isn't someone that I want to be spending that time with. Maybe there's somebody else who I would rather spend this time and energy with, if they give me a reaction like that. And the final truth here is you don't need to be like anyone else. Right? You don't need to show up to a networking event and try to be like me, try to be like Oleg, try to be like your friends. You need to be you in those instances. And I think that that's part of what gets really scary, because a lot of us wear these different masks of self-protection and other things of thinking this is how we need to show up in these certain settings. Yes, there's certain professional things that you may need to do, but really you need to show up. If you are funny and quirky, be funny and quirky. Don't try to be very serious and stoic. I geek out when I talk about my favorite TV show, and I will go full ham on it. I'm not going to minimize that part of myself because I'm networking with someone. I'd rather them see that. And if I feel like, oh, I have to make myself smaller, then I'm getting information as to whether or not that is a relationship I want to continue to try to foster or not. Because if I feel like I can't be my full self, I don't want to be in those kinds of relationships, any kind of relationship with that. So at the end of the day, did you die? Right? This is one of the things we were talking about as we were planning. But did you die? Have you ever gone to a networking event afterwards and not survived it? Every single one of you have. You are all here. And so you really have to think about these internal fears. Is it going to kill you? Probably not. Okay, so what do we do instead? You have to vocalize your fear. Okay, talk to yourself and look at that fear. Is that fear of it's too late for me to follow up? Is that real? And you can say it out loud, as unconventional as it may sound to be talking to yourself. Talk to yourself, all right? And you can say, you know what? I am afraid of going to or following up with this person because it's been 6 months and they're, you know, it was a spur of the moment or in a moment kind of invitation that they gave me. And look at that fear and go, well, yeah, it might have been, but I couldn't have gone anyways. That was a last minute invite, and then that's why I didn't show up to their event. You're not trying to be critical, right? You want to step back and look at that fear. Is this really something that I am actually afraid of, or am I just telling myself I'm afraid of it? Sometimes just giving it that voice of saying it or writing it down, that is going to give you a lot more information as to how you actually feel about it than if all you're doing is keeping it in here to yourself. You have to get it outside of yourself, either by saying it or writing it down, either one of those two, so you can actually look at your fear and go, you know what, that's actually not a real fear. Like, okay, I'm being silly, right? I can't make this next move because I'm afraid of this one little thing. No, that's not true. So you're going to be able to step back. If you feel like I can't do this myself, that's where I go to point number 2. Talk to a friend. You're like, you know what? Hey, I am, you know, trying to look for this new job, and I'm afraid that my skills aren't going to come through. You know, what do you think? And your friend, make sure they're a good friend, someone who you like and they like you. They're going to be able to talk to you about that. They're going to be able to talk to you and listen about what that fear is. Okay. The point is getting it outside of yourself and then having that reflection back. Most of the time it's, oh, you're being silly, or you're being too self-critical, you're not seeing your amazingness, whatever those things are, that those people are going to pump you up. They're going to be your cheerleaders. And that's why I go to point number 3. If you still feel like, you know what, I can't talk to anybody else, then you need to be talking to yourself like you would your best friend. If you have a friend that's coming to you saying, you know what, I'm really afraid of going to this party, but I know it would be a good thing for me to go because there's gonna be lots of people here from my work or different vendors or other people that I want to meet. But I feel really silly going by myself. What would you say to your best friend in that situation? It's going to be a good opportunity for you to go. You're going to have fun. Even if you meet one person, that's going to be worth it, right? Those are the things that you're going to be talking to yourself like someone you love and care about. And sometimes we have to trick ourselves to do that, to be able to really talk nice to ourselves about what some of these internal fears are for our networking and other ways that we get ourselves out there. So these are my suggestions for what to do for the internal fears. Before I move on to the next section, I just want to check in. I know there were a couple questions. Let's see. What are your feelings about sending a year-end appreciation letter or post to your referrals and past supervisors? What about posting a similar post to LinkedIn? Okay, so interesting question. So end of the year appreciation letters, I think are great. They can also get lost in the end of the year stuff, right? You'll get lots of different cards or information. So I think it's a good time. You may not stand out the way you want to. And so I've seen some places that will actually forego like a holiday gift or appreciation, and they'll do it later in the year. So that way they're not competing with all of the different attention that comes in at the holidays, right? It's the same thing when you volunteer for like nonprofits, for example. They'll get a ton of people volunteering in November, December, and then come May, June, July, crickets, and they're begging people to show up. It's a similar concept. So yes, you can send them. There is that additional competition, if you will, or overwhelm that may happen. You can decide to do them a little bit different. I had a colleague actually recently was really on the business of happy birthday cards, and was just like on it. Like it even showed up on my birthday, and I was surprised. I was like, oh wow. It was just that extra little thoughtfulness in that moment of, again, a business appreciation from that colleague that I was not expecting at all, because we weren't that close for me to be receiving a birthday card. But that gesture in that moment stood out. Even though I was getting lots of other, happy birthdays and all of that kind of attention, it was that person that I wasn't expecting it from that really stood out in that moment. So just different things to keep in mind. As for appreciation posts in LinkedIn, you can do them there. It's certainly something that you can do in any of your social medias. I don't know that it will have the same impact that you want, because it's to too many people unless you're being very specific. So I'd probably still do something on there, but you don't necessarily have to. So I hope that answers your questions. What is my advice for senior citizens that need to network, or the I'm too old fear? Okay, that's a good internal one for us to talk about. So I know that most of you guys are a little bit on the older side here, not everybody, but that is certainly a fear that you have. I am too old to be out there networking with people. And I'm going to say this. You're probably the most interesting person in the room, and you don't even realize it, because you actually have stories that you can tell. You have information, and sometimes you have skills that you won't even recognize are skills, because you're like, well, I just do that normally, or that comes easy to me, right? All of those things that you do that you take for granted, other people are going to find really interesting. So it's really a matter of you realizing, one, you're amazing. You're still here, and we've got so much more to learn from our senior citizens, and getting people out there to network is going to be a fun time. and you, I think, have an advantage with age. I think it's a little harder to network when you're younger. You may show up because you're being silly or not knowing as much. I think this is kind of the thing. So I'll tell you the story. When I was in law school, it was the first time I met any attorneys. The first week of law school, I went to a networking event, and it was not meant for students. It was meant for practicing attorneys. But I showed up because I was naive and I just didn't know. Somebody else took me under their wing. That's how I met my first lawyer and really got some of my first mentors in the law, because I was young and stupid, right? But that's essentially how it was. So I think you get some of those advantages if you can show up that way in a genuine way and not trying to act really naive. But when you're older, people are going to give you the benefit of, one, maybe already being in the industry, already knowing things. Colleagues that I've had that went back to school for second, third careers, people just assume that they've been doing this for 10, 20 years because of their age, not the other way around, even though they'd been out, 2 or 3 years and we're still new to the practice of law. You're not new to the business world. You're not new to being an employee. So make sure that you remember all of those things are actually benefits. They're not hindrances. Okay. So how to network as, okay, so some of these are, yes. Okay, so I'm going to answer some of those questions as I go along to the external barriers, okay? So external barriers are the ones that I've identified here. Mind you, there might be more, and if you think of some, go ahead and throw them in the chat. Limited opportunities. I don't have a lot of people to network with. I don't know anyone. There's not a lot of stuff going on in my community. Maybe there's technical issues. I can't navigate all of these different tools. There's too many apps. There's too many options out there. All of those different types of things that may come up with not knowing. But I think if I heard Oleg earlier, the library is working on making sure that you don't have technical barriers, and we'll give you training on that, which I think is pretty amazing. And then scheduling conflicts. I don't have the time. I have other obligations. I'm taking care of my aging parents. I have a child with disabilities, with special needs, those kinds of things. These are external things that are outside of you that may get in the way of you being able to actually go out and network with people. So here's what I think you really need to know. Everyone is your network. At a certain point, you're networking at networking events, professional events, those kinds of things where people are meant to get together and it feels like people are just throwing business cards at you, that kind of a thing. Those are a good entry point, maybe, for certain industries. But the truth is, everyone you know is your network. Everyone you know. Your family, your friends, friends, former coworkers, former employers, as long as you're on good terms, right? All of these other people, your neighbors, you don't know who can actually help you with whatever it is that you're looking for until you get that kind of clarity for yourself. But everyone is your network. And so I really want to help you get out of thinking networking is only at specific events or things that are industry related. It's everybody that you know. Your barista could be a network that you might want to tap into at some point. So making sure that that is something that you are really taking into consideration. These people who know you best and who know what your skills are, who know your abilities, and who see you completely, because we see ourselves through the lens of ourselves. These people in your network may actually come up with other opportunities and think of other ways to get you the goal, the job, the new network, or the new industry that you want to get into. Let them help you, okay? But you got to be able to say what it is that you want. In terms of technological barriers, there are over 50 programs on the YouTube page alone for this program, for Work Ready, archived. And they're all at least an hour long. That's 50 hours of education. That's over a week's worth of work for you to get some sort of education on how to network and do other things. So I know that there are technological aspects out there that can help you with this. So you can do things through the library. You can learn through Coursera. They offer a lot of free courses. If you want to get a certification, you pay the difference for whatever that certification is. And YouTube is a search engine. YouTube is not just a bunch of dancing videos like TikTok. Even that's changing a bit. It is a search engine. You can learn anything that you want to know about technology and how to get out there in these different ways. And then I can't find the time. Have you had time to watch Netflix? I know I have. Right? Yeah. We have the time. We're just choosing to use it differently. And that's okay. It's okay to know that right now, maybe it might not be the season for you to be networking. It might be, I need to be taking care of my parents. I need to be taking care of these other big issues in your life. That is completely fine. You're going to be making that choice of which way makes the most sense for you and what do you want to be spending your time on, right? I think of I'm going to say the average American is spending over an hour on social media, and not including the TV time that's going into things. We choose to allocate our time differently. And so if you want to get out there and spend the time meeting people, investing in those different types of relationships, if you have it set as a goal and if you have it set as a priority, you're going to make it happen. That's how networking happens, is you have to make it a priority. You have to go out there and make sure that you have these certain things on your radar. And sometimes it might mean that you have a late night. It might mean that you if you're able to take a longer lunch because you're driving across town. And depending on what type of work you do, your employer will hopefully be supportive. There's certain industries that like you to be out there, and there's others that do not as much. So I alluded to this earlier. What are the tools for some of these external ones? This is similar to how to pitch yourself. And we got some great questions here. Tell people what you want. This requires vulnerability. You have to tell people what it is that you want. And I learned this from one of my first mentors. She was a prosecutor. She's now a federal judge here in the state of Nevada. And she told me, Siria, people want to help you, but you need to tell them what you want. And that stuck with me because, one, it's having a positive outlook of people want to help you, and they do. People want to help you. Okay. You need to understand that. People want to help you. They want to see you succeed. They want to see you be happy. And because if you're already going in with that mindset, that starting entry point, you then have to do the next part. You have to tell them what you want. And you need to do that work. You need to be clear about, I want to work as a realtor. I want to work in, I don't know, the film industry. You guys are all in LA. That's what I always dreamed about, right? You need to be able to say enough of what it is that you want. I'm looking to switch careers into something that's more sustainable. I'm looking to explore going back to school. And then when you're able to tell your network of people this, and you just start sharing a little bit, before you know it, other opportunities are going to come through, because there becomes a certain point where your resume no longer matters. And it's your network that matters, because your network's going to get you that next opportunity. Your network's going to pull you into that industry that you want. But if you don't have anybody in that industry, you got to start somewhere. Someone's going to know a connection and be like, oh, well, you know what? I know someone who's working at this studio, or I know someone who's switched over to doing makeup work, or, is doing online sales, whatever it is that you want to do. Talk to your network, let them know, and see what comes through, because people are going to want to help you. It requires you actually stepping outside of yourself to tell people what you want. The other one that you guys may have heard of is setting SMART goals. right? So this is a specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound goal. Giving yourself a SMART goal when it comes to an external network. I want to network and have a one-on-one meeting with one new person once a week for, we'll say 40 weeks next year. Okay, that could be a goal. I don't want to do 52. I want to take some time off. Or I want to do 4 a month. That's one goal a month. Right? I had a similar goal to, I wanted to go out to lunch with people. And in my industry, I have a little bit more flexibility with the timing and things like that. But I set it as a goal. This is what I want to do. I want to have this many goals, and then I worked backwards, knowing, okay, this is who do I want to have lunch with? That wasn't as important to me as going out and having one-on-one connections. And I set a goal of 50 lunches, and then the pandemic happened. So I didn't quite meet the goal, but I was on track of knowing, okay, every week I'm spending time doing this. And I understood that it was a way for me to connect with people in a way that's enjoyable to me. You need to figure out, what is that goal that you have? You can set up a SMART goal for going to a network event, which kind of ties into the next point, which is a strategy of something that works for you. You may go to this networking event and say, I want to meet 2 people and have a really good conversation. If you set that goal, you already know it's specific. I'm meeting 2 people. Is it attainable? Absolutely, right? Is it measurable? Yes, 1 or 2 people. Is it relevant? Yes, I'm at this event. I want to talk to 2 people, and it's time bound. You've got the event, right? If your event's from 6 to 8, you've got a 2-hour window to make that happen. And that is absolutely something that is attainable that you can do before you go into any of these events. You come up with a strategy of what it is that you want to do there. It's not, if this is giving you anxiety, it may not be enough to just show up to the event, but having a plan, making it a game of some sort of way for you can do that. In fact, one of the things that came up as we were brainstorming was this idea of a spreadsheet. There are people who may put all of their contacts into a spreadsheet and just kind of measure, how often do we talk to this people, and how often do I go back and actually continue to foster those relationships. This may sound super unsexy to you and just, oh, that's not something I want to do. I don't want to be talking to people in this way. I don't want to have that kind of a system. Don't do it. You find a system that works for you. I like spreadsheets. I don't know that I want to put all my friends on a spreadsheet and figure out what I'm doing, but I may try it out, because I also know that there's certain relationships and certain people in this networking business side that I want to make sure I'm fostering those relationships. So I might have a target, maybe not everybody, but just here are the people that I really want to be intentional about. The point is, if you're being intentional about your networking and you're going out there with some sort of plan that you can execute on, it makes it much easier and enjoyable for you. Because as soon as you get your 2 people, I had 2 good conversations and got 2 business cards, you can give yourself permission to go, if that's what you want to do. Some people may or may not want to do it that way, but you get that option. So we're going to come up with different strategies. You can look up and see what other people do as well. So there are people who do cards afterwards. I'm a thank you card kind of a person. When my life's not as hectic, I can handwrite something. If I'm doing them in the moment, it's much better for me to do that and have a process. I have a bunch of cards, I have postage, and I got a stamp with my address on it. Like I've got things in place. As long as I've got the time to do it, that's something that I've always enjoyed doing in networking. I'm also a words of affirmation kind of person. So I like hearing words. So I like writing words, right? So that's going to be a little bit different. Finding other ways of keeping those connections, whether it's sending them a message. This strategy is something I've heard a lot of people doing recently, which is actually sending a voice note on a social media app. So if you're sending something on like a Facebook Messenger and just saying, hey, it was really great to see you today. I really enjoyed our conversation. There was just something to help you stand out a little bit more than some of the other standard stuff. Yes. Can you send an email? Absolutely. Yes. Can you send a digital card? Yes. You can do those things. What is the impact that you want to have is really what you want to be considering, because sometimes the digital stuff gets lost. I can tell you right now, my email says, over 3,000 unread emails. Some of you, that's giving you a lot of anxiety. Others of you are like, oh yeah, that's nothing. I've got 10,000, right? There's such a wide range. Figure out what makes the most sense for you to do, for you to be able to really enjoy the aspect of going out and networking with people. So that went a little bit faster than I thought, but we've got lots of questions. So we are going to dive into all of these and give you some more tools. So we did this, and I will actually stop the share.
Would you like me to take care of the questions for you, Siria?
Yeah, let's do that.
All right. So we've got some questions. Actually, I had a question about something that you were talking about before, and that is, when is it too late to reach out to somebody?
I don't
Like
think
somebody,
it's
so like you're saying, if you gave somebody your business card and like 2 years later they emailed you, would you be like, what?
I first of all, it'd take me a minute to figure out when did I give him my card. I may not specifically remember that, but I'm not going to be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you didn't reach out to me. It's been 2 years. Like, I'm so busy, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to ignore you. If anything, I'd be like, oh, wow, okay, cool. I'm glad you found the card. How can I help you? Right? That's really what it comes down to. People are still going to want to help you. They're not going to be looking at, well, the last time you contacted me was a year ago. Now, I think we all have those moments. I certainly do, where I look at something and go, wow, it's been so long since I've talked to this person, when I go to send a text message. That's something that can happen. And you still send the message. And you may say something like, hey, I know it's been a while, wanted to reconnect. Just something where you can address it if it's been too long. But you don't necessarily have to, because again, people are not paying attention to the length of time that you're taking to talk to one another.
I think that that's accurate. I was thinking when you're saying that, I just had in mind somebody that I reconnected with recently, or they reconnected with me, and they told me, oh, we met at an event. I didn't remember their name at all, and we met at an event a year and a half ago, something like that. It was a while ago, and as soon as they said the event, I was like, oh yeah, we had that conversation, and we had a really nice conversation, and then it was just like, we know each other again.
Exactly. And that's part of that reconnection piece, right? And we know each other again. Or maybe you learn that somebody moved into an industry that you're really interested in, and you're like, wow, it's been a couple of years. Like, they're not going to remember me. And all you can do is try. Because here's the thing, if we self-select by not doing something, that is us already rejecting ourselves. Like, at least give them the opportunity to say no, of no, I don't remember you, or no, I'm not interested. And it's so rare that people would do that. And again, if they do, that tells you some information about whether or not you want to be talking to that person anyways. But it's so rare that people are going to act in that fashion. They really want to help you. And if they love what they're doing, they're going to want more people to come do it. They're going to want to tell you about how to get in there, how to do the process. Or if they're like, no, this is the worst thing ever, let me stop you, they might want to share that information too.
Well, it's like you got business cards printed at your own expense, and you're giving them out to students. Right? So you want students to get in touch with you.
Yeah, I want to be able to answer their questions no matter when they're coming, because the information is still going to be there. And I think that that's something that, especially with the I'm too old question of being out here, is you have so much knowledge and you don't even realize it, right? You're like, oh, well, yeah, that's not a big deal. Well, it is a big deal. You have knowledge, and that comes through in a different way. And sometimes people need to hear what you have to say and hear it from your experience for them to be able to internalize it. Can you go out there and, hire a business coach, hire someone to do your resume, have someone coach you in the moment of, okay, here's how you're going to do these things? Absolutely. Sometimes it's just knowing that someone else is further ahead in the path that you want to go, and that you can ask them some questions. Sometimes that's enough to get you moving to where you want to go for your networking.
Yeah, and there's that age bit is really important to consider. Um, be, when I think about like the library world, libraries are many people's second or third careers. So the people that are in library school, which is grad school, many of them are, you know, have had experience in other places. Many of them aren't just like just out of college in the traditional time frame. So it's really not that unusual at all. And in many fields, it's not like people get to a certain age and then just like disappear. I mean, people, if they work their careers, there are going to be people that are not, not 25, not 35, not 45, not 55. There's going to be people that are 65 that haven't retired that are working in that field. So I, I, I agree with you. I think that sometimes people get inside their own heads about age, but I, as a person who's at events and stuff, like I never really think about it. I mean, I like people of different. It's nice to have the diversity of age in a place.
It is. And I think one of the things that's really important that you just mentioned is that second or third careers, right?
Mm,
People are able to live long enough to have second and third careers. What an
yep.
exciting time, and being able to bridge that information from one area to another area. So there's a book, oh gosh, it's called The Generalist. Um, I'll find it and send it to you. But basically it's talking about how we've spent so much time emphasizing, the 40 under 40 lists, the 30 under 30. We highlight this rapid success of people being specialized and getting so narrow that it makes it hard to see how your field or your expertise can relate to something
Mhm.
else. But when you have people, no, the book's called Range. There we go.
Range. Yeah,
Range.
I found it already.
Yeah. When you have range and you're going into these different careers, you can actually see, well, why don't you can see solutions that nobody else can see, because you're able to see, oh, okay, well, I've got this information from this career that I did, this sales and marketing information that I did for a while there, that's going to be useful for me in some other way. And then all of a sudden you've made this unique tapestry of you as an individual and are able to pull from all of these different areas of your life because you have all of that experience, instead of having been only doing the same thing over and over again for, you know 30 years. That can give you a very narrow point of view, but range, that's going to give you that um, broader experience and knowledge that you can bring into, and again, is going to be an asset, not necessarily a liability, because people won't have that same experience that you have.
I mean, when I've interviewed people and I see on the resume that they had a different career, worked in a different field, my curiosity is immediately engaged because, I mean, consider that I've been interviewing people who have been in the library field their whole time. And here I see somebody who's been in another field.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really cool. I think that's really nice. I immediately start having questions, like not interview questions, but just things that run in my head, like, what was their other career like? Why are they switching over? So interesting. Anyway,
Right.
let's get to some of these questions because we do have
Yes.
some questions in here, and our conversation can go on and on and on. So let me get some of these other questions here. So, what about sending out digital Christmas cards or digital Christmas cards or digital Christmas cards? I think both of
Yeah.
those are.
So I talked about this a little bit.
Mhm.
You can do that. Again, what's the impact that you're going to have? People are for those kinds of things like Christmas cards, people are actually looking at effort. They're looking to see, okay, what is that? And I think that you may do that too. At least I do, sorry. Where you kind of look, okay, well, there are certainly easy, efficient ways of doing things. And this could be an easy, efficient way of doing it. Is that the impact that you want to have, where it's like, yeah, this was really easy, efficient, I put you on this list and everybody got that digital card? Or do you want to put a little bit more effort into it? Again, it's going to be effort, and it's going to depend on the relationship that you have. You may not want to do that, or you may not have the expense. I mean, 56 cents to send a letter adds up after some time. And if you start sending like really thick items, or you start sending appreciation gifts, and not to mention that gifts are capped at $25 per client, according to my accountant and IRS. So there's going to be other expenses and other things that you don't necessarily want to get into. So a digital card could fit the bill. if that's what you're looking to do, just at least highlighting, hey, I thought of you and I'm sending you this. I did last year for Christmas. I made cards because I like being creative and I did my watercolor on them. So that was fun. This year I have made 0 cards. We'll see what happens.
But people remember those cards from last year, I'm sure, because if I don't know, if I got a card that somebody made, I wouldn't like, you get a stack of Christmas cards and eventually they go in the trash. But if there was a handmade card, that card would remain with me. I would not throw that away.
Yeah, I got a lot of compliments like that, which it is a compliment of like, oh wow, like no, we're keeping that, like you made that, and I was like,
Yeah.
well, yeah, like so it again is going to have a different impact. I didn't do it for all of my contacts, right? I'm figuring out who are the core people that I want to impact the same. Like I wouldn't send a digital card to my mom,
Mhm.
maybe this year because she's in Central America, but like that's not something I would do. I would want to make sure that I'm doing that and evaluating based on my circle. I'm kind of doing this shape right now because I've been working on this idea of thinking of who's my inner circle, right? If this was a
Mhm.
target, who's my inner circle? Who are the main people that I want to make sure I'm spending the most quality time with? Um, that they know what's going on, that I know what's going on in their worlds, and then expanding from that. Okay, who are my friends that I want to see on a more regular basis? Okay, who are these acquaintances and maybe business professionals, and where's everybody else? Because if I'm prioritizing everybody else on the outside and not that core people, not those core people, I feel like I'm doing a disservice to myself. This is something that is new and is in development, so I will let you guys know how this goes, because I really do think that if I have a way of at least tracking that core group for myself, uh, I think I will just be happier and have better relationships, and be really in alignment with spending time with the people that I want to be spending time with, and
Mhm.
not just giving my time to everyone and not really seeing that return for myself.
Right. Speaking of developing those groups, we had a question. How do you network as a college student or a person that doesn't have a lot of experience? Like,
You
where do you start?
So for college student networking, doesn't have a lot of experience. I'm assuming you're meaning work experience.
Yeah.
Uh, you can certainly start with networking with your peers, right? I think we forget that that is an opportunity. You got to start there. Start networking with their peers. If you are in college, your peers may have access to different networks or information. They may know people or parents who can help you get into certain uh, industries or fields or opportunities, internships, that kind of a thing. So that's really where you're going to want to start. Most people are going to understand they're a college student, right? I think that that's one of the funny things about being a college graduate is we think when we've graduated, oh yeah, like I'm on top of the world. I've got all of this great information. And I can tell you my first job after UCLA, I moved to Las Vegas and I went to a temp agency and they're like, yeah. Can you type? Like that's what they cared about. It was like, yeah, I can kind of type. Like they could care less about my degree. That's where they were at. It didn't really matter. Most people are going to understand that you don't have the practical experience of knowing how to print to an industrial printer because that's just not a skill that you have. Are you coachable? Are you teachable? Are you willing to learn? Those are the things that people are going to be looking for, especially when you are a new graduate, someone with not a lot of experience, and knowing you're not going for the big CEO job. You're going for something entry level. You're going to be starting much lower than I think sometimes our expectations may allow us to
Mhm.
think, because we're like, wow, we have a college degree. Like, look at all this great stuff. You're going to start where everybody starts, which is at the bottom, and work your way up from there.
Think about the long term when it comes to what you just said, which is networking with your peers, is that those people are going to be moving around. Like if you think in the long term, 10 years from now, those people are going to be all over the place. And that's going to be your network of people who are all over the place, working in different places, maybe in different careers, in different geographical areas. I mean, I'm thinking like there are 3 people from my high school who work at the library who are like my colleagues. That, when I
Hmm.
think about the people who went to UCLA with me in library school, they're literally all over the country. And so like that's part of my network. But
It is part of your network. And if you had decided, you know what, I want to move to another state, the first thing you can look at is, well, who do I know there? You might
Mhm,
know more people than you realize. And I've certainly been around since the beginning of Facebook. And those friends and colleagues that I made at the beginning of Facebook were my college friends. And those people have spread out all over the
mhm,
globe, really. And it's really cool to be able to see how am I using these social medias and being able to just say, hey, I'm going to be in your area. I'd love to have coffee. I've done that with people
mhm.
who I went to high school with, college, um, and just, even law school, like people you haven't seen in some time, of just making the offer.
Mhm.
And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It means more to me that you reached out, especially if we've shared some sort of life experience together, like those colleges. I mean, heck, even when I was waiting tables, any of those people could call me up and I would be more than happy to have that, because we have that bond of something we went through. Um, and being able to reconnect if I'm able to make it happen. If I'm not able to, well, that's life. It doesn't always work out, but it means so much when people reach out, to try to have that connection.
Then you can chain your experiences. So say if somebody reached out to me and they were like, "Oh, I went to UCLA Library School, like I graduated in 2010, or I don't remember, 2011, something like that." If somebody was like, I went to UCLA, graduated in 2015, and if I didn't even know them, but if they send me a message saying, "Oh, I went to the same school as you, but graduated later or earlier, whatever," um, that's a connection that we already have. That's a link that even
Mhm.
if we're total strangers, we have a link. And so they're not just like it may be a cold email, but it's not that cold because like
Yeah.
we have a shared experience.
Exactly. They're warm because you have that shared
Mhm.
experience. It's the same thing with joining actual networking groups, which you can do. You can join the BNIs of the world. You can join eWomen. I'm in a group right now called Polka Dot Powerhouse. I'll give them a plug here. It's a phenomenal group. It's not a networking group. It's a friendship group. It's a group for women to connect and have, um, connect to other human beings. I personally love that. I
Polka
can
dot
reach out to
powerhouse.
anybody. Yeah, Polka Dot Powerhouse.
I love that name.
Um, I can reach out to anybody in there and say, hey, I'm also in this membership. There are so many memberships that you can do that with, because you have that common interest. I mentioned, kind of playfully, I was at a fan convention earlier, this weekend, and I'm the only attorney that shows up in the Las Vegas group that I go to. So for the longest time, I was the only resource there that they had when it came to somebody getting in an accident or needing some sort of legal help. And me being in that space that had nothing to do with the law, had nothing to do with, anything other than me just having fun, has been a great referral source for business for me because I've been the only one in the room. And I know that those people are seeing me as a resource and that I can also go to them with different things and that they're also resources. So just keeping in mind, there's a lot of people and different ways to connect,
Mhm.
that have nothing to do with like going to a specific networking event.
Right. Now, if you do go to a specific networking event, the question here is, are there certain stories or anecdotes that would be helpful for us to have ready?
Yes. You're going to know what these are. There's going to be certain stories that you tell over and over again. And they could be funny stories, they could be, um, stories about experience or trips and things like that. Those are always helpful to have. But I think what's more helpful for you to have is a question. And it's not a yes or no question. You want to be asking open ended questions about, to get them to talk. That's what you want to be doing there. So I would rather you have the ability to answer your own question. So I would say something like, what do you enjoy about running? If I know that this person happens to be a runner, right? And be able to ask follow-up questions from that information that they're giving me, because I'm genuinely interested in, like, what do you like about that? I personally love, love, love hearing people talk about what they're passionate about. And you know what they're passionate about because their whole body lights up. They get these huge grins on their smiles, on their faces, they're excited to tell you about the thing. Like, I mean, some of them start even doing this kind of a thing where you're like jumping up and you're excited about that. If you can get people, if I can get someone doing that, I'm excited. And I'm enjoying the conversation, and it doesn't feel like networking. People are going to have different reactions to that. It might, if it feels safe for them to do that and be able to talk to me, I love that so much. But it's because I usually invite a question that they can start sharing and opening up. I would then want to be able to tell them, answer a similar share, right? So if they're talking about running, they may ask me, well, what are you really excited about? I'd probably say, well, I really geek out over the show Supernatural. And I can talk about that. So it's an equal share. I'm not going to necessarily go into something really, really deep if it's not, even handed. You want to make sure that you have those. So those are the kinds of stories and anecdotes that I would have ready. But again, more so a question than necessarily your stories, because you want to get the other people talking, and then they're going to walk away and be like, wow, that was a really great conversation, even if you didn't say much in the conversation.
Yeah, there's a neat question in the chat that tail ends what you just said. How can someone end on a good note at the end of a conversation?
That's a good question.
It's an interesting one. I feel
Yeah,
like
I mean, it depends on what you're trying to do. So sometimes if you want to end on a good note, I'll tell you what to avoid. Avoid telling them you're going to go talk to other people, right? There's a way of saying that um, that can come off of like, oh, you're just not very interesting. And sometimes it's like, okay, well, this is what we're here to do, and they may understand. But most of the time, it's I don't know, it feels off-putting to be like, okay, well, I need to go talk to other people. Peace out. So I wouldn't do that. Instead, I would say, I've really enjoyed our conversation. I can't wait for us to connect. And maybe if you're being genuine about it, I hope you are, you can actually start connecting in that moment and set your next meeting. Okay, we're going to have coffee. We're going to have Zoom. If you do that in the moment, one, you're going to already have it on your calendar and you've made that commitment. But two, but that's going to end on a good note. Like, hey, you know what? It was so great. I can't wait for us to catch up. Or finding a way to end the conversation gracefully. Of, you know what? Thank you. So I'm gonna go refill my drink now. It was such a lovely way of talking to you. I'll reach out. If you're gonna say you're gonna do something, go do it. Go reach out to them, have that engaging conversation, whatever that is. But there's ways to gracefully bow out of the conversation. Sometimes it's a conversation you just don't want to be in. There's no more follow-up that you want to do. You're just really like, okay, there's not much here. Just be direct. Thank you so much for your time. This was a good conversation. Nope. And then make an excuse to get out of it. I need to go use the restroom, the drink. What else could you do?
I'll see you later.
I'll see you later. Yeah, you can do those
Let's
kinds of
talk
things.
again soon.
Yeah, we'll end sooner. Something like that.
I think
So
there's a good analogy. I mean, you and I, Celia, are both writers, and there's a good analogy to ending the positive end to a conversation in what a writing tip from Ernest Hemingway, which was before he would end his writing day, he would know what he would start with the next day. And so, similarly, when you end a conversation with somebody, there's something that there's more that you want to talk. You already know there's more that you want to talk to that person about, and that person wants to talk with you more. At least for me, when I know like this conversation ended too early, like I know we have to talk to other people, but I really want to talk to you more. I know what I'm going to talk to you about next time I talk to you. If you can have that feeling, I think that or inspire that feeling, I think that's a nice way to end conversations.
Yeah, exactly. And I think another way, just another trick, if you will, if they say something really important, there's two things you could do. One is you can write it on the business card, right? Like it's something that they said important. There's a way for you to track and do that information. But one of the things that I've been doing recently is if it's something where like they have an event coming up, they're speaking, they're doing something that they're excited about, I'll put it in my calendar because that's where important things go for me. And you got to figure out where do the important things go for you that you're going to look at every day. And I'll just make a quick note for myself of, text so and so regarding XYZ. That's my way of nurturing these relationships. So that way they know, wow, you reached out. Thank you. And even if it's too late, like as I'm saying that, I was thinking of someone yesterday and I was having a travel day, so I didn't get a chance to reach out. But as soon as we're done with this, I'm going to reach out to them and just say, hey, I hope your day was okay, because I knew it was going to be a rough day. Different things that you can do, after you have that conversation of, oh, I want to follow up with them because they talked about this, or maybe they gave me a book recommendation and they said they were going to get it to me later. You can follow up with any of those threads from your conversation to continue the relationship.
Right. So here's another question where we got a lot of questions about these in-person networking. And the question is, could you talk about tips about how to talk about yourself or pitch yourself as a creative without flat out asking for work? In other words, how do you make lasting connections and ask about them as well in an intelligent and open way, especially at mixers? That's this questioner's biggest challenge.
Yeah, that's a good question. So how do you pitch yourself as a creative? I think you got to try, you got to let people know how you help them. So it's not about you, it's about, because that's what they're looking at, especially in those spaces. And it feels a little gross to say it, it's what's in it for me mentality. But if you know that going in, it's like, I help people have less anxiety. They're going to want to go, oh, well, what does that look like? Oh, I have anxiety. Maybe you can help me, right? They're starting to think of it that way. So, oh yeah, no, I'm an artist, and that's saying what you do, but that doesn't tell anybody else how they benefit from that. I put on creativity workshops to help people manage their stress. That's going to be a different pitch. I'm still an artist, but if I'm putting on a creativity workshop to help people with their stress, it might be like, well, that sounds really interesting. I want to do that. How can I learn more about that? And so part of what you want to be doing in the when you're talking about yourself is just give enough information that people want to ask you the follow-up questions instead of you throwing your whole resume at them of all the things that you do in the moment. Because the point of these relationships is to start a relationship, or the point of these events is just for you to start getting to know people, talking to people. Maybe there's some other way that you can connect with people to give them more insights into who you are. Maybe that is following each other on social media, that kind of stuff. But really, it's the beginning point. They'll get to know you more in the process. And at some point, if the thing is you want to be writing stories, you want to be in the room, you want to be breaking that story, you have to tell people what you want. Like, yeah, I'm looking to get into this more artistic role. If you know of any opportunities or availabilities, let me know. Sometimes it is telling people exactly that thing that you need. I've had recently, just when people ask like, hey, is there anything that I can help you with? I go, yes, I'm looking for XYZ. And me saying that may get their brain going, and I'm getting additional information. Like, yeah, if you know someone, I'm looking for a studio to record some podcasts in, or to do a bigger project. They're then going to be able to talk to or think about somebody else. Oh, well, you know what? I know someone. In fact, that happened to me for a podcast project I have going on right now. I was talking about, here's kind of what I'm looking for. They're like, oh, well, I know someone who just opened up a studio. Like, let me make an introduction. And all right, cool. You follow up on those things, and then you continue to foster those relationships of really that helping and giving back and forth in those relationships.
Mm-hmm. So the next question is, I'm new to LA. I know very few people. How do I find opportunities to engage, network, and expand my orbit?
Yes, being new to an area, that is always a challenge because, again, you are new and people are already rooted. But it's also an advantage for you because you can say, yeah, I'm new here. I don't know what to do. I don't know who to meet, where the place is, and you get to go exploring. And so I think for someone like you, Ben, who might be new and wants to expand your orbit, what are the things that you like doing? What are the things that you enjoyed doing where you lived before, right? I would be going out to, I've been doing this. Oh, Oleg knows this. I've been going to a poetry club once a month at my library here in Las Vegas. I enjoy poetry. It's something that's fun. And it's like, okay, and now little by little, I'm starting to make friends there, starting to talk to people. But I have to want to be in that space. It isn't just me going to something because I need to be there. No, this is something that I'm interested in, and I can start meeting people in this other creative realm that I have a big interest in. So you can find those things. What are you interested in? Are you interested in something more creative? Are you interested in like hiking groups? There's certainly meetup groups are really good for that. There's a lot of different interests that are being explored that you can get into. The library always has some sort of activity going on, and look at their calendars, see what's being offered near you. Your community centers have a lot of information and have a lot of activities. I think people don't go or use those resources nearly enough.
Local
Um,
newspapers. Local newspapers are
yeah, local
fantastic. I
newspapers.
love our local. We have La Crescenta Weekly here.
Um,
I read it every week, and I find out things that are happening, even if I'm not going to go. Just
mhm.
knowing that there's just a bunch of people doing a bunch of stuff. Like in any
Yeah,
big
those are
city,
great.
you've got meetup groups for every interest.
Every interest. Along with those papers, you can look at the free papers that you'll get at like the grocery store that
Mhm.
may be like ethnic grocery stores. I know the Latino stores and the Asian stores, I've seen them there. They've got all kinds of information going on of what's happening within those communities. So really it's a matter of searching out, what do I like to do? What are the things I could see myself doing? And then finding those different opportunities. And the more you start looking for all of those things, especially if you're doing it on your phone or on your computer, then the search engines are going to start giving you more of that information.
Mhm.
They'll start serving you with that. And the algorithm's never wrong. So if you're getting ads on something, it's because of something you've been doing.
I mean, it's sometimes weird though.
Yeah.
Brooke mentioned the Nextdoor app as well. Yeah, if you want to connect with people that are nearby, Nextdoor, and then
Mhm.
somebody else mentioned, Lenore mentioned,
Yeah. I'll give you a plug for
Eventbrite. That's a good
Yeah, I'll
one.
give you a plug for a different one. So it's called Buy Nothing. And I actually heard of this from a friend in
Oh
San
yeah,
Diego.
we use this. Buy Nothing groups are fantastic.
Buy Nothing groups are amazing. And so if you're not familiar with Buy Nothing group, it is the whole idea is it's a gift economy within your zip code, maybe surrounding zip codes. There's a Facebook group that will run it for your area. And then people post stuff on there all the time. I'm gifting, a treadmill, who can come pick it up, or I'm looking for before I buy this thing, I'm looking for a space heater, does anyone have one? And you post this kind of stuff, and I have been able to rehome many items that I needed to get rid of in my house, to someone who could actually use them and appreciate them. And I think that's pretty cool. I've received things that way too. So Buy Nothing groups is another way to meet people.
I think the overall theme is to show up. You just have to you have to go there. You have to go pick a place and go there and talk
Mm-hmm.
to people, meet people who are interested in the same things you are or in the same career path as you are. Nothing beats showing up.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's see. How do you reach out to somebody that you're interested in connecting with without any prior network or lead? You just come across their social media page or you heard about them. How do you initiate that?
By saying exactly what you just said.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
really that
people
simple.
overthink this message, this first message, and there's really no reason to overthink it, is there?
No, there isn't. I can tell you there's a psychologist here in town. She's got pretty good TikTok following. And when I realized she was in Las Vegas, I was like, we need to be friends. And so I messaged her. I was like, hey, I'm on TikTok too. I really like what you're putting out there. I'm interested in psychology. Can we connect? And now we've been friends for like the last year and a half, because it's like, how'd you meet? It's like, oh, we met online. I meet all kinds of people online, right? I just message them, and I do the same thing with other people. It's like, wow, it seems like we have a lot of follows in common. Um, I'd like to connect and talk to you more about whatever this is. So I'm doing a lot of
Mhm.
work in the mental health space. I'm connecting with other attorneys in the country who are also talking about mental health. I can reach out and just say, hey, we both have this thing in common. Can you connect? And sometimes I've certainly had it happen to me where it ends up in my spam. It might take sometimes like, oh, other times they'll show up. In fact, I had an author show up to my book club because I sent them a DM on Instagram. I was like, hey, really loved your book. We had all this stuff, wild, I'm going to ask and see if maybe you'll do this, but you want to show up to my book club? They're like, sure, that sounds like fun.
Yeah.
Had to ask.
It's there's no reason to overthink this. This is like the barriers that you're talking about. The barriers are mostly self-imposed. Most people don't mind receiving messages, even if they're just cold messages from a stranger. You know,
Mhm.
as long as it's not like, give me a job
Right.
and do it quickly.
Yeah.
As long as you're not like tactless in that way,
Mm-hmm.
there's very few things that you're going to say in an email that says, "Hey, I ran across your feed. What you're saying is really interesting. Can we talk for
Mm-hmm.
15 minutes or whatever?" People are not going to be offended by that sort of thing.
Yeah. And if you're doing that as your first impression, do be professional in that sense, in terms of
Mhm.
being a little bit more polished. Make sure your grammar is good. Make sure that you're um, using full words instead of you. You actually write out YOU, that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
because you are going to make a first impression. And if to someone who does not know you at
Mhm.
all. And so if you want to set yourself up for uh, a response, make sure that you're being respectful and coming off with a little bit more professionalism in even those asks.
And on LinkedIn, they can always look at your profile. So you send them a message, and what they're going to do
Mm-hmm.
is they're going to look at your profile and say, okay, cool. This person is, I know a little something about this person already. It's not like they're like a total unknown. Um,
Right. And especially if you're messaging someone on social media, they're going to go look at your social media real quick and then come back and decide whether or not they're going to talk to you. So if you've got some things on there that maybe you're like, incompatible, or that you think aren't going to put you in the light that you want, you might want to reconsider that account or what you're posting, things like
mhm.
that, because people are looking at it
Yeah.
once you get on their radar.
Should one always ask for a card or a phone number, even if you've only chatted for 10 minutes? Will you give off stalker vibes?
That's a good question. Um, I would say no. And the reason that I'm going to say no is, if you talked for 10 minutes and you didn't feel like you wanted to talk for more than that, you may not want to you may not want to give more information, right? Like 10 minutes, that doesn't seem necessarily like a strong enough connection. Um, to always ask for it. You have to really judge that in the moment. Was this like an amazing 10 minutes, but it was the last 10 minutes of your networking event and everybody was getting kicked out the door? I've been
Oh,
in those things,
it looks like
right?
there's actually a follow-up to this question. Hang on. I scrolled down further and there's a follow-up question continued. Obviously, you have to have had some chemistry in the conversation, or should one wait till you've seen the person more than one time? Instead of stalker vibes, I should have said clingy. I suppose you might signal clingy if you ask too many questions, but the person you network with might like helping. So,
So people want to talk about themselves. So I
yeah.
don't think that you asking them more questions is ever going to be a bad thing. But in those 10 minutes, it's really going to depend on that energy and how you ask it too, right? Like, wow, I'm really enjoying our conversation. I know you've got to go, or I know we're at the end here. I'd love to follow up with you, but you don't have to do that all the time. Now, if there's someone you keep running into at different events or other things, I always like to joke around about, oh, well, hey, we must be meant to connect because I keep seeing you at everything I go to. And sometimes those connections can happen like that, where it's like, oh, you see them at one event, the next event, and then little by
Mhm.
little, you've gotten to know them. And then finally you get together. It's like, wow, why didn't we do this sooner? Probably a scheduling issue at that point. But making sure that you ask for the card if you really want to follow up. If you're just asking for the card to get the card and you're not going to do anything with it, I mean, that's like, you can sense when that's happening, when someone's like, oh, just because you're giving out cards, like, I'm not giving out candy. It's the card and the contact information. But what do most people do with those cards? They put them to the side. Maybe they'll follow up. Having some sort of process when you get business cards is going to be important for you. I have a friend, I meant to share this earlier. What he does is he only gets a card if he absolutely wants to follow up with someone. He then puts them in a spreadsheet. Then he contacts them 4 ways within 24 hours. He sends them an email, he'll send them a text, send them a DM, and then he'll give them a call. And then he's going to track which one do they respond to. And then he knows this person responds to text messages. That's how they're going to communicate. Now, he's a veteran, he's regimented, he's got a lot of discipline. That to me, I'm like, wow, that's a lot of steps and effort, but he's only doing it for the people that he really wants to connect with to make sure that they have that. And so, it's a process that works for him. It's not something that would necessarily work for me, but it's still something that I offer to the group because you guys may benefit from a process like that. And knowing I only want to get cards of people who I actually want to follow up with instead of just collecting them all and not doing anything with them.
It's come full circle. That's why you're on the tools slide right now.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
This is the one with the spreadsheet.
Yep, exactly.
So let's do a few more questions and then we'll call it a day. And if you have further
Okay.
questions, folks out there, feel free to email Siria. I'm sure that she
Mm-hmm.
would be welcome to receive your question and connect with you afterward. So after all, this is about smashing networking barriers. You could practice by reaching out to somebody who you know isn't going to be offended by your message.
Correct.
What do you suggest for the actual next steps after making a great connection in person? It feels scary to actually do something with that, even if they offered support, particularly if you're on the job and shifting industries.
The next step is doing it.
For Pete's sake, email them, please.
Email them.
Do it. Please do
They've
it.
given you an open door, right? Go email them, talk to them, and just say, hey, here's what I'm working on, or I really wanted to follow up on this thing that you were telling me. I'm shifting industries, and give them options, right? When you do that follow up, I think one of the things that can be a little frustrating at times is when you say, I can only meet on Mondays. Give me a couple options. Maybe Monday's not my meeting day. And then you're going to be like, well, you only meet on Mondays. I guess we're never meeting. Give them a couple options. It doesn't always have to be a lunch date. It doesn't always have to be in person. You have technology. I think being flexible with what that is, especially if it's somebody that you want their help with something, make it easy for them to help you. If Calendly, for me, I send that out to people all the time when they want to have a conversation because I'm trying to make it a little bit easier instead of going back and forth and texting for 20 minutes trying to figure something out. Sometimes it's just easier to call. You're like, all right, I know we're going back and forth this, like, what's on your calendar, what's on mine? Try to make the process a little bit easier for them. And I think that will also help ease your own anxiety because you're trying to be helpful in the process.
Right. If they give you the card and say, please email me, do it.
Yeah. Email them. Mm-hmm.
So this is a question relating to what we were talking before when we were talking about how to get out and meet people. And this person said, well, what events are you talking about? And going out there, where is it? Also, can you talk about people not having a culture or other type of connections at all, like immigrants, or having fear of driving, limiting a lot, considering a family having children and no budget to go anywhere?
So what I've been talking about mostly is specific networking events. There's a career day, there's a networking professionals getting together, that kind of a thing, or career days, job fairs, those kinds of things, right? Where you're going out with the purpose of meeting people to engage in some sort of business. There might be other events, which is what I wanted to make sure that you're looking at, which is your company Christmas party can be considered a networking event. Your husband or wife's Christmas party is a networking event where you're meeting and talking to other colleagues. If you have events at your church where people are coming together, every time that people are coming together in some sort of group setting can be considered some sort of networking event. You just set your intention of what it is that you want in that setting. I'll tell you, I went to a friend's birthday party and I knew I was looking for another job, and I wasn't really intending to go there to find a new job, but I did. And the reason I did was because I knew I wanted a new job. So when someone asked me, like, how are things going? How are things going with work? I was able to say, you know what? I'm actually kind of looking for something right now. And they said, oh, you should talk to so-and-so. Her firm is looking for someone just like you. And that's pretty much how I've gotten every single job after got my first year of law school. You start talking to people and you start letting them know what it is that you want. So these events, there might be some that are specifically structured for networking. There's others where it's you going out and being around people and doing group activities
Mm-hmm.
where you're talking to others about just life. So it's living life.
Yeah.
So, and in
And
terms of people not having cultural or other connections like that, you have other connections, you have other interests. It could be gardening, it could be recycling, it could be volunteering, it could be film and television, it could be geeking out over pop figures, it could be, fly fishing. There is something that you're interested in. There are other people who are interested in that same thing. You can go find them.
there's limitations. Everybody has some sort of limitations.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to have a conversation about not just seeing the limitation, like, say you can't drive, you don't
Mm-hmm.
drive. Um, but there are ways to get places without driving, right? I mean, there's public transportation, which is challenging. There's Uber, Lyft.
Mm-hmm.
There's getting a ride with somebody else just for that one event, just for that one evening, is
Yeah,
getting a ride with
I
somebody else.
mean,
So there's, you have the limitation, but to bore into that limitation and say, I can't do anything because of this, misses the point. The point is to is to switch your thing to now start thinking about solutions. Like, how can I do this? How can I overcome this thing so that I can get to the finish line, where you want to be?
right. And with that fear of driving limitation, I know plenty of people who have that fear. In fact, my assistant has that fear right now. She just witnessed a horrific car accident a couple weeks ago.
Ooh.
And we had to have a meeting across town. And it was like, well, I know you're kind of nervous about driving and we got to do something. Do you want me to pick you up? Like, is your husband going to take you or can I pick you up? Yeah. Picked her up and took her. There are people who will do that. That will, once you start meeting those people, and some of those people might just be your friends, like, what, I really want to go to this event, but how I feel about driving across town, you know and asking for that help. If your friend knows that you're looking to move industries, you've shared some of this stuff, people want to help you, and so knowing that that's available to you is certainly going to be helpful. Seeing who's registered for the event, sometimes places have that information. You might be able to do something like some split a ride share, or just kind of doing some of that pre-homework.
Hmm.
But that fear of limitations is a very real fear.
Yeah,
And there's ways for you to work with your fear instead of against it,
right.
to keep you limited in that box. That's not what you're trying to do.
Hmm.
You're trying to change your circumstance. You're trying to go out there and get a different opportunity. You have to do things differently than how you've been doing them in order to accomplish that.
Hmm. Exactly. And I think that's a good place to end for today. I know we didn't cover all the questions, but if you still have questions, now's your time to practice networking. And with that, I just want to say thank you, Siria. Thank you very much for this presentation. And I want to ask the folks out there, if you have a moment, please fill out our post-event survey. Siria, do you have a contact information on your last slide? Do you want to switch over to
I
that slide
do.
while we're closing up here? Because that will be, there it goes. So you can go to the website, you can contact Siria via social media. You have a LinkedIn account, right?
I do have a LinkedIn account.
LinkedIn,
Mhm.
and your email is on your website?
Yes,
Or
emails on the
I think there's
website.
a contact us form, right?
Yeah,
Okay. So
you
yeah,
can
yeah.
contact me there. You can also contact me at Cydia at CydiaGutierrez.com or Cydia at GutierrezLawPLLC.com. I am reachable. I'm very reachable. You can slide into my DMs. Um, Unless it's on LinkedIn, it'll just be slower. LinkedIn is going to be my focus for next year, which is in a couple weeks.
There we go. So let me post I'm gonna do the post-event survey in the chat. So if you have a few moments, fill that out. That survey is very short, but as short as it is, the appreciation for you filling it out is that much bigger. So thank you all for being here. Thank you, Siria, for the presentation, and we will see you next time.